It is lovely to be talking to you all today. My name is Dr. Christian Reynolds, and I'm going to be focusing on food policy making. And so I am a senior lecturer at the Centre for Food Policy and teach on our Masters in Food Policy here. Citizen science is one of the many methodologies that we kind of engage with and touch with at the Centre for Food Policy. We're very concerned about lived experience and how that relates through to formation of policy. My own research is definitely focused on healthy, sustainable diets and food waste, and I'll be showing you a little bit about some of my research involving those with citizen science later in the talk. But if you're interested in any of this, please do reach out to me afterwards here on LinkedIn, over email, and on Twitter. I'm at Sartorial Foodie is my Twitter thing, and I'll put it in the chat as well. But it's a pleasure to be talking to you all today. So I'll just be open with you how I got into citizen science. So I'm originally from Australia. Sorry about this accent. And back in 2012 to 2014, in the laboratory next to mine was a team working on the Great Koala Count and Operation Magpie. And these are environmental citizen science campaigns where people went out into their backyards to look for koalas or look for magpies in the trees and tag them down. And so I became involved in this because the researchers in the lab next to me were running this different survey. And it's always stayed in the back of my mind thinking about citizen science and how best to use it or how we could use it to solve food system problems. And so in 2018, there was a research network called the Science and Technology Food Network. And they have a citizen science platform called Zooniverse. And Zooniverse was something used to discover galaxies. So you put up a picture and says, how many, dots does this have? Or does it have something like this? And you can identify planets or identify stars. And I thought, could you adapt this online platform to people looking at pictures of food and guessing things like the ingredients in the food or the calorie content on the environmental impact? And so that's how I got back into citizen science, but it's led to many other things since then. So I would highlight that the work I'm going to be talking about today is part of ongoing research and a research agenda for me. And so we've already mapped out, and I'll show you today, how food and citizen science can work together, but also focusing on the different ways you can solve problems such as food loss and waste using different citizen science methods. I also published a small chapter with policymakers from the Food Standards Agency in a book called Future Directions for Citizen Science and Public Policy, where we talked exactly about those things that were talked about in the first presentation around equity and about different policy organisations needing to be prepared to engage with different sorts of citizens in different sorts of methods. And so there's that piece there. And then finally, this led on to the Food Standards Agency, which is a safety organisation for the UK government, asking, could you do a review for us looking at citizen science and how we could start integrating that into our policy making? And so that's what I'll start talking about today, is thinking about how different agencies can take issues around food and integrate those into their policy making. We've already heard about citizen science in terms of what it is. So again, it's participatory research, it's engaging, and it's enabling different people to become involved in this. And I also want to highlight that it's about bringing lots of different perspectives around and to enable better uptakes. And I think all of that was said much clearer in the first talk, but I do highlight the great book 10 Principles of Citizen Science in Citizen Science, Innovation and Open Science, which is one of my Bibles. I go back to it time and time again. And I also highlight that there are many, this is the escalator model of science engagement, as it were, that there's different levels of engagement that different people want to have with different sorts of science. So this might be people going to a museum. Lots of people want to do that, but they don't want to do anything else, but they're happy to go to a museum. But then the further and deeper you go into different sorts of things, if it's having an app and saying, oh, you're rating recipes or you're rating different things or places to eat, that could be considered part of a citizen science, but it's around problem definition. So it's understanding the scope of your audience and how much your audience cares about different things. And in the terms of food policy or policy more broadly, you will get a small band of individuals who care deeply about specific issues. And it's understanding, as the previous speaker said, how to start creating research projects, co-creating research and co-creating measurement that can lead to policy change and policy processes. And also highlighting that there are different levels of engagement within citizen science, and this is citizens as sensors, citizens as understanding the data, and then participatory sciences, which is really where I want to have my citizen science at, and then extreme in terms of the citizens coming and engaging with us to even create the research projects, which has just started to happen for us, which to me is incredibly exciting. And I'll show you a couple of examples at the end of where the citizens have approached us at the Centre for Food Policy and said, this is what we're experiencing. Can we research this? Can we start developing something here? And we're starting to do that now. So happy to talk about that later. And it's then us as researchers having our connections to policymakers and saying, let's all get in the room, design something and go forward. And I'll also just highlight here that there's, I guess, this journey that all of this goes on in terms of policy impact. And I'm very much trying to think about how different things can lead to actually change in people's lives. And so this is a great diagram from the Action Project, which is an EU-based project, but just highlighting that there is this co-creation that happens in terms of research questions, designing all of this citizen engagement. But there's this nugget, a core, as it were, of concern around an issue before all this happens. But I also need to acknowledge that some citizens are excluded even from this process because they don't have the means to engage, e.g. they have other things that are driving. They may be concerned about energy prices or food or the environment, but they're also worried because they're living in a state of food security, energy insecurity, poverty, which is a barrier to them starting to engage in citizen science and starting to engage in policy impact. And I think one of the big learnings from my journey in citizen science that is not really shown on these slides is highlighting that we need to be able to reach out across multiple communities to understand what voices and concerns need to be heard in policy, and citizen science is a way to do that, but it is more costly, and that means we need to be actually providing methods and thinking of methods to engage much wider spectrums of the community than the people who are naturally available to do citizen science because they have internet connections, because they have money, because they have time. And it's just highlighting that tension in that the low-hanging fruit of citizen science are the people who are already motivated and can give time to this. And they may not be the people who need citizen science the most. But on the whole, citizen science has this ability to have all these different levels of engagement, which can lead through to creating metrics, as spoken previously, and that can lead through to changing or to creating policy or implementing policy based on those metrics and influencing decision makers. So I think there are three things that citizen science is really powerful about, and I'm highlighting this because this is a policy session in terms of we can feed into policy formation, we can feed into decision making, and we can feed into that implementation of policy, monitoring and evaluation based on the methods that citizen science has produced and used. So I'm very excited about all of this. Sorry if I'm speaking too fast there because I'm excited. So in terms of food and citizen science, these are the different areas in terms of food system that we have started to map out, that's different parts of citizenry can think. So I'm thinking of citizens in a very wide viewpoint. So you have communities and citizens, but also policymakers are citizens in their own right too. Likewise, farmers are, and the natural systems can be part of citizenry. Likewise, other parts of this food system supply chain. But within food citizen science, these are the main areas that have really kind of had previous research done in and using citizen science or practical methodologies, so co-created methodologies, etc. And this could be thinking around ecological monitoring, food literacy, urban growing, and I'll go through some of these examples later. So this is the framework we came up in terms of things that could change in terms of policy around these different areas based on evidence from citizen science. And so we produced this methodology, and we then also produced a review of the citizen science as it relates to the Food Standards Agency. So looking deep diving into food safety, novel foods, how that, and food allergens, those sorts of things, how that could actually be harnessed in a citizen science lens. And the Food Standards Agency then went to the UK research group, UKRI, and did an open call across the UK, and they awarded 6 new projects that are currently piloting their citizen science methods around food safety, and these will all then lead back to policy formation loops in the coming year. And so these are different topics, including antimicrobial resistance, so that's on salad greens, so actually getting people who grow salad in their backyards to swab and see how antimicrobial resistance is, a thing on infant formula and powdered infant formula, and engaging with different parents at home about how they prepare formula. And then through to looking at food allergy and how you can engage with people around hypersensitivity, around to looking at chopping boards, all of these different sorts of citizen science campaigns, really interesting novel ways of thinking about and which can thinking about different food issues that are concerns to the population. All of these had to be co-created with citizen groups, and then all of these directly feeding into work packages within the Food Standards Agency and being able to inform policy directly. So I find this very exciting. I'm going to just highlight now some further examples from our previous review. So in terms of ecological monitoring, there's multiple times where different groups have gone out into the field either to test, say, mussels or honey, or even just looking at weather in terms of climate. I mean, in terms of looking at how safe food stores are in different conditions. And so you have actually citizens going out doing tests and coming back in. And these different sorts of data are feeding directly back into water monitoring, food and wildlife monitoring, as well as food safety monitoring. So some really exciting work going on there. Likewise, in terms of urban growing, there are multiple examples within the literature of people looking at how much can be grown in different areas, e.g. If it's looking at the carrying capacity of different crops being grown locally, or food security strategies for a region, and those feeding into local government and national strategies around how do we create a more equitable urban growing area, or how do we allow people to grow food and actually provision food growing capacity within a city. So my favorite one here is the My Harvest data, which is these papers down here, which was basically partnering with different people growing foods in their backyards and at allotments across the UK, and actually looking at how well their growing did compared to traditional horticulture methods. And for some crops, it was shown that backyard gardeners were being more efficient at growing than horticulture was, which to me is a really exciting finding. Likewise, there is many citizen science projects highlighting engaging with specialist expert communities about their concerns and about how they can improve their products, and using scientific knowledge, partnering with these artisanal specialists. So this is brewers, this is bakers, this is in terms of extreme citizen science, say food substitutes such as Soylent or other sorts of plant-based or alternative proteins, and actually getting them to look at what makes their products unique and trying to figure out how they can improve it. And because they're invested in this, they are the specialists. When they start to analyze this data, they can pick things that a standard researcher would miss. And so it's been fascinating looking at, say, changes in terms of hygiene, or the graph on the screen here is looking at the fungi and bacteria in sourdough bread and engaging bakers who are producing sourdough bread in the analysis, in the swabbing, etc., so they could see what is actually making their bread taste the way it is and preserve the way it is, and if there were any food hygiene or safety issues regarding that. Likewise, there's the Shoja Meat Project, which is trying to democratize cellular agriculture, which again I find fascinating, in putting cellular agriculture into the hands of school children to teach people how to work, what is safety. Likewise, I've highlighted. You've got 2 minutes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I thought I had minutes. 2. Perfect.
Oh, no, 5 minutes. Don't worry.
I'm on the perfect slide then. So in terms of food safety, likewise, there are multiple examples of citizens testing and sharing data around food safety testing, which in terms of Japan, post Fukushima, the radioactivity outbreaks, as it were, highlighting that they were working with government to provide allergen testing and food spoilage. And finally, I'll just highlight my 2 different examples, which are now informing local or university policy. In the first example, we have this food waste app for students, which we've been testing at the University of Sheffield over the last year in terms of reducing food waste, getting food waste sent to the right recycling and compost bins, and also redistribution or food aid on campus. So students who were food insecure or facing food poverty could actually get food on campus through different sorts of app. And so we had 894 users of this app over 10 weeks. And now the University of Sheffield is changing its policies around food loss and waste in light of our findings. Likewise, this was a community group in Islington, the town where I live now in the UK, and they said, can we be doing some food waste measurement in the local community to help inform the council about what its next strategy should be? And so we had 20 different households across Islington start to measure food waste as a pilot for this, and the positive was 84% of households, as they went through the survey, started measuring lower food waste than average, but they also identified intervention points that were specific to the community we live in. And I think that's the real power of food citizen science and engaging with policy, is you can start tailoring interventions based on citizen science with the help of the local community. So to sum up in those last few seconds, citizen science is providing new entry points for co-creation and engagement with issues in the food system. And it allows a much more diverse set of voices to emerge and engage with policy processes. But again, I highlight that there needs to be more money and time commitment to allow these different sorts of voices to engage beyond the traditional communities were already established. But from my own experience, I highlight that creating and changing policy through food policy through citizen science is very much worth it, because we get this broader voice and we get a much more robust range of changes happening. So thank you very much. If any of this has been of interest to you, please do get in touch with me at Twitter, on LinkedIn, anything. It's been a pleasure talking, and I'm looking forward to all the questions, but thank you.